like to welcome you back to Within You, a podcast that explores the unknown. It's a podcast that walks you through that doorway, that transition between one room and the next, a place that I like to call a liminal space. When we're leaving what we know, walking through a threshold into something that might be unknown. My name is Vivian Carrasco, and I'm a wisdom teacher and mindset mentor. I'm based right here in Fort Worth, Texas, a place that I'm happy to call my home. We are in the middle of a little bit of a series. We started in October. This is the second episode in November. What we're moving through is recognizing this liminal space, this changing, this shifting as it relates to the seasons. So using the transition of nature to help us recognize the transition that's going on inside of us. So in October, if you haven't listened to these episodes, I encourage you to kind of take them through in sequence and then come back to whichever one really floats your boat. But in October, we really explored potential and possibility. We looked at imagination, and I made up this really cool acronym called MIND to help you develop goals that belong to you. And then in November, we started with dancing with our doubt and exploring curiosity as a way to get to confidence. And I ended that episode reminding you, as you battle with yourself, wondering how you're going to get things done, I wanted to refocus you into shifting that more into a question about why you're getting it done. And this entire episode really drills down into that why, into looking at your values and how that helps. So I recognized really recently, like within the last, I don't want to lie. It's been recent because it still feels new. I've really recognized the difference between belonging and fitting in. I guess I hadn't noticed or been aware of how much of my life was spent trying to fit into expectations from my parents, from society, from my husband, from my kids. And over a period of time, I slowly sort of bucked against that expectation in little ways because I was building my muscle towards it. But one way in particular that's coming to mind in the moment, and this was a long time ago when Jacob was still in high school, I transformed our dining room into a meditation room. And I remember how upset Jacob was. Everyone's gotten used to it now, honestly. It wouldn't be my house without that room now. But gosh, I don't even know how many years ago. 8, 7? It's been a while. I mean, that's not a really long time, but it's kind of a long time. I don't think this would feel like my house without that room. But we don't have a dining room because I have that room. But I remember really vividly how Jacob, like the distress in his face and in his voice, he's like, "Mom, this is weird. Like nobody does this. Like, why are you doing this?" I don't think he said it, but I think in his head he was probably thinking like, I'm never going to bring my friends over. And it's funny now, but it was difficult at the time. And so that's how I started to sort of flex my muscles between belonging and fitting in, because the dining room wasn't used very often. And I'm not the kind of person who saves things for super special occasions. I really kind of live in the moment and try to make everything special. So there aren't any like special once a year sort of things, very many, because I like to enjoy the things that we have. And if we're not using them, it's like, why aren't we using them? And what would be a better use of it? And that's kind of where that came from. I'm still journeying closer to the idea of belonging versus fitting in. But I got to tell you, once I turned the corner, or in this moment, I would say the climb, like when our family has started to mountain bike and you climb and you climb and you climb, and that's super difficult. And then when you're going downhill, you're almost flying. It's so easy. And it's hard to think that you're on the same mountain or on the same trail, but you are. And so this is what it feels like when you're sort of moving into belonging from fitting in. Like that initial climb is a bear, but you got to keep going because you can start to sort of just find your balance in it, flexing your own muscles in whatever way feels good to you. So if something hasn't been feeling right, or if you're starting to question yourself about stuff, then that might be it. It might be like, is this really for me, or is this because I'm a Mexican Catholic girl, right? From West Texas, or I'm a Midwest girl. You know, like whatever it is that you identify with, is that you? Is that truly you? And that's what I hope this episode starts to sort of stir in your heart and help you navigate that a little bit. And I've got a couple of resources here for you, because this is really important. Like this journey towards being more of who you are, it's super important. I actually have an amazing mentor who we meet once a month. And one of our recent calls, the sort of genesis, the saying that she gave me from our talk was, be more Vivian, like the is-ness of you. This is something that I experiment with at sort of every level. And it hasn't failed me. Like I remember like sort of hesitating about saying something or standing up for something or telling someone, you know, something, or even doing something without anyone even like expecting me to. It was my thought that they expected it, and how it felt weird, but you start to learn it. So I encourage you to do something just like, you know, that you can be playful with, that you can really get behind. One other way that might be an option for you, I actually have been curly for a couple of years. For most of my life, except for, you know, the 80s when I was, you know, those beautiful perms. I just, you know, having straight hair, like blowing my hair out, ironing it literally sometimes with an ironing board and an iron, was more beautiful to me than my natural curly hair. I recognize now that that was kind of going against my nature, especially in a humid environment. So talk about, you know, causing your own pain. I hope you're finding these things funny. Really, I do. And now it's been a few years and I've been curly and learning how to actually be curly. And I like it. You know, it's me. It's who I am. And that's just another example. Like, it doesn't have to be this really scary, like, black hole that you absolutely have no idea of where is this going to lead to once it starts. You know, be playful with it. Do something that is just for you. People might not even notice. Another example I'll give you, just because examples love to come in threes tonight, I guess, is right now I'm wearing all black. And if you had a chance to come to my closet, you would actually see that 98% of my clothes is black. And it wasn't until a couple years ago, same thing. Lots of learning in the last few years, guys. A couple of years ago that I actually accepted that that was me. I enjoy wearing black. I have quite a bit of white too. That's kind of come up in the wardrobe, especially in certain seasons. But I always doubted myself about it. You know, I'd look at my closet and even when I went shopping, I'd be like, I really should buy this in red or blue or yellow or whatever color. But there I was reaching for, you know, another black t-shirt or another black shirt or another black dress. And I don't know why I would doubt that. Well, I do know why. Like movies, TV, like magazines, you know. In my mind, what those images formed in me is, you know, girls wear colors, right? We should have style and match and that sort of thing. And lots of girls are really good at it. I mean, I admire the girls that are good at it and enjoy it. I can't stand it. For me, in my life and my experience, having to think about what I wear is a waste of time. So I just enjoy being comfortable, and wearing lots of black helps me match things. And sometimes I buy 4 or 5 pairs of the same thing. So if you see me and I'm wearing the exact same thing, I promise you it's more than likely clean. It's just another version of the same pair of pants or same pair of shorts. Or I found this happen. I was like, oh, I love this shirt. And I bought it, and then I realized I had the exact same shirt already in my closet. So, hey, at least I'm consistent in what I like. But this is why I wanted to talk to you about your values. And maybe your values are shifting a little bit with the change that's happening and the transition that's happening. Or maybe they just want space to do that. So I wanted to start with some poetry, actually. And when I had planned this podcast, when I had kind of outlined that this was actually the ending, but I really want it to start our inquiry. Because when you know your deepest values, you can align your actions to them. And aligning your actions to your values will allow you to experience life with inspiration, energy, like real power. And that fire comes from the silence of your heart, like this peace inside of you that recognizes way deep inside of you that there is no longer a disconnect between your head, your heart, and your hands. There's no longer a disconnect between what's important to you and what you're actually doing. So I really hope this conversation that I'm having you inspires you to be playful about what feels like, you know what I'm thinking in this moment? Like when you play that game, Jenga, some people have really hard rules, some don't. So I kind of touch the wood in the Jenga to see which one's easiest to move. And that's kind of how I want you to sort of see this. We'll go through an exercise in a little bit that'll help you visualize and see and prioritize your values and put some shoes on this for you. But for now, let's start. Just maybe if you're not walking or driving, bring your eyes sort of to a soft focus, or maybe close them if you feel safe. Relax your shoulders. Just kind of ground into this with me. If you're driving or walking, lift your chin slightly, relax your jaw, take a couple of breaths, just recognize your body breathing, and kind of dance with me as I read these words from Martha Postlewaite. It's a poem called Clearing. Do not try to serve the whole world or do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forest of your life and wait there patiently until the song that is yours alone to sing falls into your open cupped hands and you recognize and greet it. Only then will you know how to give yourself to the world so worthy of rescue. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, wow. So I have a book that I pulled out for this. It's called The Upside of Stress: Why Stress is Good for You and How to Get Good at It. So Kelly McGonigal, she's a twin, I actually found out. So the sort of summary of her book, and I recommend you get it if this is something you're interested in. It's called The Upside of Stress, and it was really sort of eye-opening for me because I used to tell myself that stress was bad for me. It was something I didn't want. But she really goes into the research and into a course that she taught, I believe, at Stanford, that helps you change the story that you're telling yourself about stress. And one of the tools that she uses in this book is a values affirmation. So it's important to me and my work that you ask yourselves the questions, who am I? Who are you? And what's important to me before you move on to what and who am I to become, or what do I aspire to be, or what's next. Like start with those two foundational things. Who am I? What's important to me? And then what do I want to become? So in the book, she says stress may be a natural byproduct of pursuing difficult but important goals. That doesn't mean every stressful moment is rich in meaning. And yet, even when the stress you're under doesn't seem inherently meaningful, it can trigger the desire to find meaning. If not in this moment, then in the broader context of our lives. Far from being a luxury, the ability to find meaning in our lives helps us stay motivated in the face of great difficulties. Human beings have an innate instinct and capacity to make sense out of their suffering. This instinct is even part of the biological stress response, often experienced as rumination, spiritual inquiry, and soul searching. Stressful circumstances awaken this process in us. This is one more reason why a stressful life is often a meaningful life. Stress challenges us to find the meaning in our lives. That was really important for me when I read it, and I think that's why I highlighted it, because when I was going through stress, like huge, like big stress, then I went into like a deeper self-inquiry. And when we are going through those things, we don't know if they're the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, or they're distracting us from what we need to do, or at least that's how I felt. I wanted to share her words with you because it comforted me. And I hope that it comforts you, like, oh, like that's natural. Like stress is going to awaken soul searching, spiritual inquiry. It's an instinct. It's a biological response to stress. That's being human. And so recognizing that hopefully might let you give yourself some space for kindness and compassion. So she segues from that into the values exercise and writing about stress. But I actually want to point one more thing out before we go to that exercise, because it's based on some experiments that were done. I'll put it in the show notes. I'll add the actual values exercise and who the researcher was. But in a nutshell, what happened is they kind of followed students who wrote about their values to help them find meaning in their lives. And the students who expressed their deepest values and attached the why to what was going on, like the stressful things in their life, they showed benefits months and years later. And then the other research that I'll add in the show notes, said this is the most significant exercise for you to do, for meaningful success or something like that. But the point is that we have to connect to our values. And part of connecting to our values means that it sort of puts this seed of hope, of belief that we can get through what we're doing because it matters to us. So when we reflect on our values, the story you tell yourself about the stress that you're having shifts. And you're more likely to be successful, to take the challenges that are in front of you rather than avoid them. So maybe this exercise, what I'm hoping for in this exercise is that it makes you better able to see the meaning that is behind whatever might be going on in your life. And if you're focusing on the why, it makes the how easier to get to. And you will never win a battle with the how without being focused on your values and what matters to you. You will talk yourself out of whatever it is that you're imagining for yourself, because you'll be overwhelmed with not knowing the how, not understanding that your brain really is a memory. It's a filing system. When you say how, it will sort of, have I ever done that before? No. Red alert, red alert, red alert, like that, gets you anxious, it gets you stressed out, and it's a way for your body and your brain thinks that it'll protect you from danger by not allowing you to try this new thing, this thing that you don't know how to do. That's why it's so important to anchor into your values. So part of what I was talking about just now is from a book by Kelly McGonigal called The Upside of Stress. So this is a pretty simple practice, and because it's an actual practice, it's not something that you're going to be able to do, obviously, while you're driving or walking or anything like that. So go ahead and listen to me as I give the instructions, if that's the activity that you're doing right now. And then, come back and let me guide you through it one more time. And if you want to print out, again, the exercise from the show notes, then just go to the website and it'll be listed there for you. So it's a writing exercise. And again, you can find it in the notes. So pause again to settle into your space. I really recommend that you take a pencil or a pen and paper to do this exercise. It's really not something that you want to type into your phone or voice record your answers. You want to embody this practice by physically moving it through your arm into your hands, through the pencil. It will activate, and I don't have the research in front of me, but I've read and I believe that it just deepens it when you're able to write it out. So if you're considering typing notes into your phone or voice recording your answers, I just encourage you to attempt to do it with a pencil, putting ink to paper in some way. So the questions in this exercise ask you about your ideas, your beliefs, and your life. It's important for you to understand that there are no wrong or right answers. in this whole kind of inquiry, there are no wrong or right answers. They are your answers and somebody else's answers. And that's really what we're trying to get, like, sliced through. What belongs to you and what belongs to everyone else of you? Like, what are the, like, distinguish, like, sift, sort. Just get to the bottom of what's yours versus what's wrong or right. So again, you can print or download the exercise, but I'm going to walk you through these 4 questions. The first question you're going to be answering is, select 2 or 3 values that are most important to you. And on the handout, they list 14 values. I'm going to read them to you. Athletic ability, confidence, creativity, empathy, independence, leadership, membership in a social group, music, patience, perseverance, politics or government, relationships with friends or family, religious or spiritual values, and a sense of humor. In this first exercise, in this first question, you select 2 or 3 that are most important to you. So in the second question, you're going to answer the question, why are these values important to you? You can include examples of personal experiences in your response. You want it to be a single page or maybe a few paragraphs, but write down in a story why something is important to you. I shared in the last episode how really grounding into why it was important for me to finish college or to get a degree moved me through that. I believe that it is the reason that I got through all of that, because I was so grounded in my why. And why is it important for me to have a degree? Because it was for Joshua and Jake. It was for both of them. So you're going to answer the second question with a story for each of the values that you picked, whether you picked 2 or 3, in just a few paragraphs on reminding yourself about why that's important to you. And the third question is to consider the values you picked as most important to you and list the top 2 reasons why those are important to you. That's the third question. And then I'm going to flip over to the 4th question because I think I have to read something. Yeah, the 4th question asks that you indicate your level of agreement with each of the following statements. So it's a Likert scale where one end is strongly disagree, somewhat agree, and strongly agree. And you're going to indicate your level of agreement with these statements. The first one is, the values I selected have influenced my life. Do you strongly disagree, somewhat agree, or strongly agree? And then in general, the second statement is, in general, I try to live up to the values I selected. Again, rate your level of agreement with that statement. The third one is, the values I selected are an important part of who I am. And rate your level of agreement with statement number 3, the values I selected are an important part of who I am. And the 4th and final statement in the 4th question is, I care about the values I selected. So again, indicate your level of agreement on those. That's the whole question. It's not just Kelly's book, but it's a whole lot of other research and a whole lot of other controlled studies that really show a significant impact on people who went through this exercise. So it's worth your time. It's worth your attention. It is worth your kind of pausing to reflect on what's important to me, what's most important to me, and why is it important to me. That's the whole focus of this. So I encourage you to re-listen to the instructions or maybe download the exercise from the show notes. Because when you know your deepest values, again, like this is the important part of it, is you want to feel aligned. You want to feel like everything is in flow. There is no peace when what you know you want and what you're doing are 2 different things. And even if that knowing is deeper than you're consciously aware of, or that you're allowing yourself to be aware of, maybe you're numbing or distracting yourself or busying yourself with keeping yourself so busy so that you won't recognize, reflect, or even pause, because maybe you're afraid that you reshifting your values is really going to cause this like chaos, or just scared of the unknown. Like it could be anything. But after this, like the suffering dissipates. There is a peace and an alignment with what you're doing and who you are. You can draw strength from that. So I hope that this practice is clear for you and that you're able to move through it. And again, if you need the handout as a resource, jump over to the website, viviancarrasco.com, and download it. If you're having trouble with the exercise, or you just want to dialogue about it, this is how important this is. If you do this one thing out of anything that anyone ever sort of teaches you about personal growth, about learning, about becoming, being grounded in what matters to you, what's most important to you, is like the fulcrum. It is like the cornerstone of this work. So it is so important to me that you recognize it, that you see it, that it is concrete for you, that I am willing to just jump on the phone with you if you want. Send me an email at vivian@viviancarrasco.com, or, you can, I think in the website, it's contact me or maybe even work with me. There's a link there where you can jump on a 30-minute call, just a free call, and it'll ask you some questions. So in the answers, just mention the podcast and mention the values exercise. And I'm really excited for you to have done this, for you to recognize what's most important to you. There's no way to get this wrong, but you don't have to do it alone, is my whole point. Like, find a friend that you trust, that is your ally, that advocates for you, or a family member. And if you don't have anyone within arm's reach, or that you feel comfortable going to, then let me help, is what I'm saying. Because this is that important. Knowing what matters to you is that important. So, I really want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for doing your own work. I want to thank you kind of for journeying with me. And if you have any feedback for me, pop it into an email at vivian@viviancarrasco.com, or if you want to hear from me via email sort of irregularly, because they're not on schedule, on any kind of schedule, feel free to scroll through my website. There are lots of places where you can put your name and email, and that's sort of the next step for us. If you'd like, if you are this is really resonating with you and you feel strongly rooted, in the intersection between your interior life and what your creative expression of that life is, I do have a learning community, an online learning community that I'd like to invite you to. We do learning journeys that combine personal development, spiritual growth, and a shared kind of discovery where we move through things together seasonally. There's only so much you can do in your head by yourself. There's only so much that a journal will reflect back to you. We need to be in community together. So find a friend, really reach out. And if you want to have a safe place where you can feel vulnerable and unfold these stories through seasonal learning journeys that we share together, then you may be a good fit for Within University. If you'd like to learn more about Within University, then visit the website www.withinuniversity.com. Again, that's www.withinuniversity.com. If you just want to stay in touch, pop over to my website, viviancarrasco.com, and put your name and email in whatever box kind of sparks your curiosity. Either way, we'll stay connected, and I'll always be here. Hopefully, I hope, but I love being here for you in the podcast. I, also do videos on YouTube and that kind of thing. And if you just want to follow me on social, my favorite platform at the moment is actually Instagram. It's a personal account. I'm not posting that often, but it's probably my first place to post when I feel inspired. So feel free to connect with me there too. I super, 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 super enjoy these sit down chats with you, these one-to-ones. I hope that you'll take this journey that I've designed for you as my gift. So we started in October. with kind of imagining, putting ourselves in a posture of possibility and potential, recognizing that as soon as we go out into imagination, we kind of withdraw into doubt, like we fall back, like, no, I don't know, or is that for me? Like recognizing it as a natural step back. And then, in that step back, you deepen, you go in. And that's why this episode is all focused on values. This is intentional. I designed these last few episodes for you. I have a lot more beautiful stuff coming your way. So I'm just super excited about Within You's focus and our journey together. Like this will be something that you can cycle through. And I cycle through it. Like it's important to touch back. And, the spiral is an icon in my branding. It was inspired, but now I really recognized it as a symbol of the type of work that we do. Like we move out and then move in, and it's ever, ever deepening. Like it reminds us that this is not a straight line towards whatever transition we're moving to. So I am so grateful to be on this journey with you. I'm so just honored to be in your ear. I know you're sharing your most precious and valuable thing, which is your time. And I do not take that for granted. So thank you again for being with me today.